You think they should be dispensed with? Just exactly what the hell are you saying? It's like, no, to hell with you. Seriously. You leave the poor alone. You'd keep the country on the straight and narrow, and you'd keep it free, and all sorts of opportunities would emerge for you. Apparently, I can't even talk about the weather. You know, here's another fact. This is literally the truth.
In which Dr. Peterson responded to an individual who expressed concern over overpopulation. That's how it's worded. And your response was, you're free to leave at any point.
The person actually said, and when people say, well, there should only be 500 million people on the planet because that's what the planet can sustain, I think, what do you plan to do with the other 7,500,000,000? They're inconvenient, are they? And what do you think they should be dispensed with? Just exactly what the hell are you saying? And if you think that there are too many people, well, what makes you so sure that you're not one of them, especially if you're the one that's concerned about it? You know, if the lifeboat is too crowded to float, maybe the morally appropriate thing to do is jump off, right? To save everybody else. Not to pretend that, well, who is it? Is it the Africans who don't get to have fossil fuels, for example? Is it people all over the world, the poor people who are multiplying so rapidly they're devouring the planet's resources? Should they all go?
Yeah. 오늘날 환경 종말론을 앞세운 도덕적 위선이 만연합니다.
Where I expressed my doubts about the validity of economic predictions based on climate science. Make energy expensive. Energy is work. You make work expensive, you demolish the poor, obviously. Well, I object to that. That's why I object to the climate fear-mongering apocalyptic lies, because it destroys the poor. Just so that the people who are screeching about the sky falling can feel momentarily moral about their role as planetary savior. It's like, no, to hell with you. Seriously. You leave the poor alone.
몰디브가 잠겨 없어질 것이란 말을 다들 들어보셨을 겁니다. 당장 지구가 멸망할 것 같았지만 그렇지 않습니다. 생산 단가가 올라가면 투자는 줄어들고 평범한 사람들의 일자리는 줄어들기 마련입니다. 이제는 환경을 빌미로 매일 벌금을 매기는 곳도 있습니다. 런던에서는 탄소 배출 규제를 충족하지 못하는 차는 매일매일 벌금을 내야 합니다. 차를 새 차로 바꾸거나 대중교통을 타라고 강요하고 있습니다. 2019년 4월 영국은 런던 중심부에 초저배출권 구역 울리즈를 도입했고 올해 8월부터는 런던 전 지역으로 확대했습니다.
The reason why ULEZ exists. Rosamund Adu-Kissi Deborah's daughter Ella suffered severe asthma attacks and died a decade ago at the age of 9. She was the first person to have air pollution listed as her cause of death. Plans for ULEZ were first announced by the previous mayor, Boris Johnson, in 2014, and first came into force in April 2019 in central London, the same area as the congestion charge. It was then expanded in October 2021 to include neighbourhoods inside the North and South Circular. But come Tuesday next week, it will expand to include all the London boroughs, making it the largest pollution charging zone in the world.
There's no doubt Denmark, France, Sweden, the UK, Holland, the Netherlands, which is particularly relevant because that's where this gender-affirming surgical idiocy first made itself manifest. The Europeans have woken up to the fact that, well, you know what? Turns out that there's no evidence that sterilizing young people and cutting off their breasts makes them happier. Isn't that a shock?
캐나다의 남자 교사는 학교에 인공 가슴을 착용하고 와서는 여유증을 앓고 있다며 진짜 자신의 가슴이라고 주장했습니다. 이런 게 정말 행복인 걸까요?
If you're required by law and by your professional organization to lie cowardly, you're done as a therapist because the only thing you've got as a therapist is honesty. And the college, which did not have to pursue that complaint, went forward with it. I have to pay for things I don't want to do. It's also not specified, so that what's specified is that I have to be retrained. What's specified in the specification is that I have to be retrained, regardless of how long that takes, until the people who are responsible for the retraining have decided that I've learned my lesson, right? I talked to Joe for 3 hours. Apparently, everything I said in that 3 hours was unprofessional and a disgrace to the profession. So, like, what am I supposed to do about that? The complainant, submitted the entire transcript, right? A 3-hour conversation as evidence of my unprofessional behavior.
피터슨 교수가 빼앗긴 것이야말로 표현의 자유입니다. 어떻게 하면 우리의 자유를 지킬 수 있을까요?
Like, what does the average Canadian do to fight back against this?
Get involved in the political process at whatever level they can. Get involved in the school boards. Get involved in the political parties. Get involved in local elections. Volunteer for election. Start differentiating between the false government state-funded legacy news and actual news, if you can do that, even though that's become impossible. Now, a young person might be thinking, well, what could I do? And I would say, that's actually not a good attitude. And I mean that practically. Because what you will find if you're young, if you go volunteer for a political campaign, let's say, first of all, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to sharpen your political beliefs. You're going to learn how to put an argument forward. And then if you're competent and hardworking, you're going to find that avenues of opportunity open for you on the political front so quickly that you can hardly imagine it. And that's partly because most political organizations are chronically short of help and absolutely chronically short of competent help. And so if you stepped into the political arena, you'd learn to speak more fluently, you'd learn to put your arguments together, you'd learn to be more responsible, you'd take the responsibility onto yourself and strengthen yourself as a consequence, you'd keep the country on the straight and narrow, and you'd keep it free, and all sorts of opportunities would emerge for you.